Hi, I'm Ben Wilsinski with the Building Industry Association, and I'm joined here today by Andy Evans, our president. Hi, Andy.
Hello, how are you?
Great, man. Thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so you are the president of the Building Industry Association for 2024. It is currently July. How's everything going?
You know, Ben, I would have to say things are going really well. I was thinking about that on the way here, and the first thing I think about is events. I mean, there's a big relationship portion of the BIA, and I look back at the events that we've had year to date, and I think they've been well attended. People had a good time, and thanks to everyone who put in tons of effort to make that that way. The financials are solid. Obviously, that's not our goal to go out and make a bunch of money, but you need to be sustainable. I think that's a positive, and we're good there. On the governmental affairs side, you could really talk for a long time about that topic, but the best thing I could say is, I mean, it's been a successful year. I feel a whole lot better about where we are today versus where we were 6 months ago. I think you'd agree. I mean, we want to be close. We want to be friendlies with all of the municipalities, all of the councils, and we certainly don't expect for them to cater to our every need. That's not going to happen. No. But I feel like we're in a position going into 2025 where we can have productive conversations, and I'm just optimistic about that. So it's, and I've got to say, I mean, I think that, you've really come a long way yourself. And you've done a great job this year. You had big shoes to fill, and I definitely can see you finding your voice. I'm president for this year, but after this year, there will be another president and then another president. But, you have to be the face of the BIA. And, I think you're definitely working yourself into that.
Yeah, it has been a very interesting 6 months, and I've had a little over a year in this role as CEO. And it's been an adventure for sure. I am learning a lot, and I have I'm very blessed with the wonderful board of directors. You and your predecessor, Mike Kinsella, the entire board has been very supportive, which you have to have in order to be a successful organization. And y'all have given me a lot of direction and insight into what I need to be doing. So I appreciate that tremendously. And I'm happy to hear that you're seeing that it's going the right direction. That's the main goal. We need the BIA to be a strong force. You're right. Also, with the government action, we have to be involved in that. That's a big thing of what we do as the BIA for our members. There are many forces out there that government forces and just municipalities and counties that are looking at home building and growth in our area, and we have to be part of that conversation. Or, as we've learned, in certain areas, they don't want us at all, or any growth, or they fear growth, or what it could mean in the future. And we have to bring that knowledge and expertise that our members have and share that with them in order to continue what we're doing. And we're doing that this year, and that's important that we're doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I felt like that was probably what we spent most of our time on in the first half of the year, but it was necessary. And, again, I just feel like we're in a much better situation now than we were. Yeah. And even though a lot of that does not take place until January, I can see some productive conversations coming, and, I feel good about that.
Yeah.
I also feel good. The last thing I would say about, I guess how the year's going is what we're doing now. Social media, podcasts, things like that. I think that is really, really important to the future of the BIA. You can educate the general public on our industry, and you can also educate people on, people trying to get into the workforce on just, the benefits of being in the industry. So
Right. Yeah.
there's a lot of different directions we can go with this. It's an investment, but I think it was needed.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, and I think specifically what we're doing here is raising awareness and bringing that. I think there's a lot of misconception about what the building industry is, or how we operate, or what we do, and our end goals. And this is an important way to get that word out to everybody. We hear it all the time of where the development industry is people from out of town who come in here and clear cut all the trees and run away with the money. Nothing could be further from the truth. But that's the perception that's out there, and that's why we're talking today. So we need to bring that
Sure.
That personal touch to it. Like, look, Andy lives here. He's with Mungo Homes. They're a large player in our area for sure. Have been for many, many years in the Columbia area. They do a lot of great things for the community. They build a lot of homes. Then they build affordable homes so people can stay here and live here and grow up here. You don't hear that a lot. And that's an important thing of what your company does. That's what Stanley Martin does, who used to be Essex Homes, has been around for a very long time, has helped shape the Columbia landscape. Great Southern Homes is another one. So there's a lot of good things out there, and we're not telling those stories. So that's what we're here to do with this venture that we're entering into now. And that is an important part of what the BIA can do. And awareness, bringing value to our members. So we're glad we're able to do this.
I agree, and those are things that we'll continue to do as well. Ben, let me ask you, how are you feeling about your role? Again, like I said, I'm president through the end of the year.
Right.
You're going to be the face going forward. So what do you
good
think?
Lord willing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I, for those that don't know, I've been with this association since 1999, so 24 years this September. Or is that 25 years? I'm not a math guy, but a lot of years here with the association. And you guys hired me on as CEO March of last year. So it's a different role from what I was doing for those majority of my time here. Some of it's similar, but the government stuff is rather new for me. Being the direct contact for the board of directors, working with the president, everything. So it's different. And as I mentioned earlier, it has been a learning experience. I am very blessed to have who I have in leadership helping me along. The staff, I love my staff. They're coming along as well. We're all kind of learning at the same time, which is great. I bring my knowledge with a lot of events. We do a lot of events in this association, and that's what I've focused on for my first part of my time here. And it's what I continue to focus on. It's a very important part of what we do to bring our members together in that networking aspect, to have members do business with members, and to build those relationships. So we're focusing a lot on those. We're making some changes. This association is changing whether we want it to or not. We have to embrace a degree of change. So that's different moving forward than what we've had in the past. It's an interesting challenge and one I welcome, and the staff is all on board with that as well. So nothing in this job, working with an association, is ever the same. And that's what I like about it. That's why I've been around for so long. It always changes. There is, even though we might do a golf tournament every year, the golf tournament is different every year. We might always do a cornhole tournament. It's different every year. There's different factors that go into planning that, and who's coming to it, and who's gonna, what the awards are going to be, or what the theme is going to be. And that to me keeps the job refreshing and exciting year to year. Right now, it's summertime. Columbia rolls up the streets and everyone goes on vacation. So it's
definitely summertime.
It's definitely summertime. It's real slow around here. But we're churning at the office, planning the next 6 months and beyond of activities we're going to do for this association. And to me, that's exciting. We are bouncing back and forth from meeting to event and meeting and event and just humming along over there. So I like that a lot. It's different, but I'm really enjoying it. I feel like I'm getting my feet under me, and we're moving forward in a positive direction.
Good. It's funny you mentioned relationships. I think when you asked me about how the year was going, one of the first things I mentioned was events. Mm-hmm. It's we moved here in 2009, and I've got to say it's really nice, how, over the years you get to know so many people. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes they're competitors, but, it's nice that I can pick up the phone and I can reach out to the person who does my job at, Stanley Martin or mm-hmm. Great Southern. And, we're not, we're not sharing trade secrets here, but
Right.
I mean, it's nice to be able to have conversations and I've worked in two other markets, and the building association and the just the HBA, I mean, was almost non-existent. So it was, you just didn't get that. People didn't know their peers, and relationships. That's a huge part of I think what the BIA creates.
Yeah, when I started all those years ago, we'd have membership meetings over at Seawells, and I was really green, wet behind the ears, and I'd go into these meetings that were full of industry leaders that I didn't know, but I knew they were important people. And you just hear the conversations, and it's exactly what you're saying. I know these people are competitors. They both are with big companies that build homes, and they are vying for the same land and the same customers. But to see them at this meeting, they're buddies. They're talking. They're not fighting each other off, or what you might picture in your head of people of that caliber. No, it was very cordial, and since then I've seen the exact same thing over all these years. We have a remodelers council. Those guys are 1-2 man shops. They're not huge companies, and they're bidding on the same jobs many times. But they'll get together and talk about those jobs, and hey, how'd that one go? I see you got this job over here. How's Mrs. Jones doing? I mean, they know everybody. So it's interesting to see that dynamic from this point of view, whereas the outsider might think, oh, they're all cutthroat and never get along or ever talk. So it's very interesting. And you're right, it is the industry, the Building Industry Association, that helps facilitate that, bring it together. And in the long run, I think it helps the industry in our area thrive and work better as a well-oiled machine, as it were.
I agree. It also makes things, more fun. It really does. I mean, a lot of these events, I mean, they're fun. I mean, there's a social side of the BIA. There's also, the governmental affairs side of the BIA, and that side has to keep the industry relevant and prominent in the Midlands. But and normally members they kind of gravitate to one side or the other. But I mean, the relationships. That's definitely an important part of it.
Yeah, so this is a very important thing in our industry, is looking forward, looking at trends. We put out an e-newsletter quarterly. We do our top 20 builders in that. We track permits across our coverage area, which is multiple counties in the Midlands here. We put out building permit reports. We do this so our members have the insight and the knowledge they need in their realm to work towards goals and build what they need to build. So you get all these emails. You're in the industry. You work for one of our major home builders. What do you see happening here in Columbia currently in the building industry, and what do you see moving forward through the rest of the year and into 25?
It's difficult to predict the future. I've learned to expect the unexpected, but just some things I would say about the market in general. And I mean, I speak from experience. It's not just emails that I might get. A lot of that is to do with other markets, and I can tell you it's been good for a long time. It really has been. During the pandemic, it was abnormally good, and it dipped a bit. We had some supply chain issues, got past those. But the last few years they've been great. They really have been.
And who would have thought the pandemic would have been good for business? But
not us, but it definitely was.
Yeah.
And business is still good, even up to right now. Some things that I see. I think one of the main things is the fact that homes are becoming less attainable. Attainability is a big factor. It's out there. Interest rates are obviously around 7%. But there's lots of different drivers of that. Regulation, I think I read was probably the biggest driver of cost. And you combine additional regulation to the fact that landowners want quite a bit for what they're offering. it's difficult. You hear of mortgage payments that you didn't hear about 5-6 years ago, and it's very, very tough. I mean, if you get somebody who's got student loans, a car payment, and they try to buy a home, it's very, very difficult. That's probably one of the things that I focus on the most. That's why we were so heavily involved in the governmental affairs and the primary this year.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned interest rates. When I start talking with anybody, interest rates comes up as a primary question. And I don't know your take on this. I feel like there are still a lot of people that have a mortgage rate on their home of 2.5-3%, and they're enjoying that, and good for them if you were able to get that and you're hanging on to it. But now it's 7%, and it changes all the time. So that's today's number, and that's a ballpark number. Do you see that as still being a big factor? Is that weighing on people? Is that keeping people out of the market?
It's not keeping people out of the market. I mean, I'm sure some, but I mean, I think people are becoming more and more used to the fact that a 7% interest rate is not the worst interest rate you're going to find. I can remember, I think it was 2008. I bought a rate down on an incentive to 5.5%, and I felt like I was stealing something, and I mean, they do need to come down a little, but no, I mean, I don't see interest rates being as much of a problem as some may think.
Yeah.
We still have a very healthy market. I mean, a lot of this comes down to supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you look at Columbia specifically, where we participate, and different people measure it differently. But, I mean, I think the last time we checked, I mean, there was approximately a 2-month supply of active inventory. I mean, that's basically nothing.
Yeah.
And, 6 months would probably be the norm.
Yeah, or healthy, whatever you had considered 6 months. Yeah,
exactly. And 2, we're still in a very healthy position.
Yeah. You mentioned supply and demand. I took one economics class at USC, but what I drew from that was supply and demand is the driver of most economic engines. And if one of them is out of whack, then that's going to change what's going on. And that's where we're finding ourselves in and I don't know if it was since the pandemic. We like to blame a lot of things on that, and some things were directly attributable to what happened there. But a lot of it is government regulation and where you can build and how much you can build and all those different factors that come into this. But it seems like there is a huge demand for new housing and not enough supply. And you just hit it on the head. We only have a 2-month supply, which is way below where we need to be to have a healthy, balanced market. And that goes to the workforce. We don't have enough people building the houses. You can't build them fast enough. The supply chain, which was a huge deal, still an issue in some areas, that hasn't gone away completely. And it can come back at any time. If we get a big storm somewhere in the world, one of these hurricanes, it is hurricane season, that can throw off supply chains again. So it's a fragile market, and a lot of that, to me, is supply and demand. And I think people don't quite see it in that term, but I've done enough reading and looking at these economic studies to see that that's a huge part of it. We need to get the supply where it needs to be. And I heard a stat that said, I believe we could build 80,000 homes tomorrow in South Carolina and still not be where we need to be. And you can't build 80,000 homes overnight. So,
well, we definitely don't want an oversupply.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
it's a balance.
I lived through 2008, 9, 10, and 11. So that can go in the wrong direction, quickly.
Sure.
And that can get ugly. But, again, I go back to a lot of, Columbia is a pretty simple market. You have Lexington County, Richland County, Kershaw, Newberry has recently come into play, but we have to get to a point where we can sit down with all the municipalities, have productive conversations, because there are things going on that are almost preventing us from, being able to participate in certain areas. And, I know that everyone thinks, quarter acre lots or larger lots is the right idea, but someone who's 24 years old, is unlikely to be able to afford that. What people don't realize is with inflation, with regulation, everything that drives up the cost, what that equates to is a $425,000 home, and everyone can't afford that,
Right.
and that's just a reality. So it's there's a lot of conversations that need to be had, and hopefully we can do that early in the year.
Absolutely, and I think that gets us back around to our government efforts that we do through the association. We're constantly working on our government affairs, our political involvement. We have a government affairs director, Quentin Gaddy, is our government affairs director at the office.
Sure.
I'm involved with that. We have committees of members who get involved with this. You're part of some of those. We have many members that spend time on this. It's very important, and it goes back to exactly what we're talking about, supply and demand. How can our industry and do it in a responsible way? And I think that's what we're trying to do, but we're running up against, and this is a nationwide problem, I'll say, is the NIMBYism, not in my backyard, NIMBY. We see that everywhere across the entire country and here in South Carolina, where you understand there's a need for housing, but you just don't want to see it, right? You don't want to drive by it. And I also see that our industry is being kind of the scapegoat of a lot of problems like traffic. For some reason, and it's not a far leap, so I don't want to sound like I don't get it, but it's almost if you build more houses, then traffic gets worse. Well, there's still roads, and there's still ways you can design roads and intersections to alleviate traffic that has nothing to do with housing. Planning for growth. And that is planning with the home builders and developers, of course, but it's also working with your roads and systems and getting everything in place. And it seems like our industry gets a little undue pressure, undue blame for a lot of the problems that we're not directly responsible for. Do you see that?
And, I don't want to turn, a podcast negative. I don't think you accomplish anything by doing that. I would just remind people, a lot of folks that I hear, and they're talking about, density and, NIMBYism, I guess is a word you use. But, a lot of these same folks, they live in a subdivision that if you tried to construct it today, you couldn't. Right. Under the new rules. So it's almost like certain folks have their home, and as long as they have their home, they just don't want anyone else to do the same. So, it shouldn't be that way. And I think that people should always remember, everyone's at a different point in their life. I can remember when, my wife and I, we purchased a home when we were 24 years old. And then, the home we purchased when we were 28 and then mid 30s and now in our 40s, it changes,
and your needs change and your values change.
Well, and I guess what I'm saying is, you may have a lot that is, or a home site that's, 37 feet wide. And, no one seems to want that, but there's a lot of people that are buyers that want that, and they take an absolute ton of pride in that. And that's about the only way you can get a house to $275,000 or $250,000 these days.
Yeah, I'm talking about my first house over there in West Columbia. It was one of those very skinny lots, 3-bedroom, 3-bath. Absolutely loved it. Served my purpose perfectly until my family got larger and we stepped up the wealth ladder, or the housing ladder, which I call the wealth ladder. Owning a home, this is an interjection, but owning a home is the fastest and most reliable way to build wealth in this country. It is a great investment. There's equity in that. You can trade up your home and you start working up those rungs, and it's an analogy to climbing a ladder. And to your point, we have a lot of people who have climbed that ladder and gotten where they want to be, and they're happy there. but they're trying to cut the rungs for everybody else. That is not the American way. That's not how it should be done. And we are here trying to say, look, we have to have people get on that ladder, because who's going to buy your house and give you your equity cash out at the end of this? Nobody, if you don't let them get on that ladder.
The reality is, I mean, it's great to have a half-acre lot with, mature trees and, but everyone can afford that.
Yeah. And not everybody wants that, honestly. You need a mix of housing types is the bottom line. You got to have condos, you have to have apartments, you have to have single-family homes, townhomes, you have to have estate houses. You have to have everything in order to make this whole deal work, or it's just going to crash down around you. So it's all responsible. It's all planning, and it's us getting in there and having those conversations. And what we were doing earlier this year with the primaries is an attempt to do that. We can't have a scenario where we can't talk as an industry to policymakers. We have to have those conversations. And that's what all of that was about, was getting to a point where we can have those conversations and be in the room. And for some reason we had lost that over the years, and that happens. These things go in ebbs and flows, but we're finally, as you mentioned, on the right side. We're looking forward to next year. We finally, I think, righted the ship with our efforts, and it's looking positive. So that's the most we could do as an association, and we worked really hard at it for the first 6 months of the year, plus some, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's got to be an every year thing.
Yeah,
that's something that people have to remember. I mean, just because we worked hard at it this year and we made some strides, I mean that really doesn't mean a lot if you quit.
Right.
I mean, whoever comes in as the next president and the president after that president, I mean, you have to keep going. And ultimately that's your responsibility to keep driving that train. You have to keep people elected or you have to elect people that will listen to you, that'll have conversation with you.
Yeah, it is definitely an ongoing effort, and it's grueling. It's a lot of work and a lot of constant attention and relationship building, and it takes a lot of work, and that's the value that we bring to our members, because it's hard for average anybody who owns a business or works a regular shift or a regular job to go out to county council meetings and town municipal meetings and keep up with the minutia of everything that's going on that affects their business. But our trade association can do that, and that's what we're here for. So we're very happy we had a strong first part of this year, and we are absolutely going to continue that moving forward.
It's definitely a strong first half, and in terms of our business, our industry, I would say, we are kind of getting back to more of a normal market, and seasonality is a real thing. Typically January through May is extremely good, and you get to the summertime and things slow down. So that was not evident in the pandemic years, or even just after, but I can see that coming back.
Yeah, okay. And I've always heard, and just on seasonality, that during the summertime there is a bit of movement just for people changing jobs and they want to get in there before school starts. Is that still a thing, or is that not a thing anymore?
It's never really been a thing that I've seen. Right. Normally people are on vacation. They're thinking about going back to school. It's just not the time of year that normally July is not a hot seller.
Yeah. Yeah. As I said, Columbia rolls up the sidewalks and puts on a suitcase and leaves town. It gets, and I don't know if that's the same around the entire state, but in Columbia, you don't get much done in July.
I mean, concrete and heat. Who wouldn't want to be here?
Right.
The people that we hire are, applicants online, builders. In terms of workforce, we outsource. We work with tons of different vendors. They have sub crews, so there are definitely layers to this whole thing. So in terms of workforce, that's not something that I have conversation about every day as being a problem. But it could be for our vendors more so than us.
Right, and you and I talked about this. We went to the Irmo Chamber of Commerce earlier this year, and this kind of came up.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of the public doesn't necessarily understand the business of home building, and especially on the Mungo, Stanley Martin, Great Southern Homes level, you don't employ individual electricians or plumbers or painters
We do
or
not.
those people. You contract with vendors who are full companies on their own right who do those specific tasks. Like you have an entire plumbing company that probably plumbs hundreds of homes for you over the course of the year, if not more. You have an electric company that electrifies all of your homes and puts in the wires for all of your homes or a good portion of your homes.
Absolutely. I have a
Yeah.
great purchasing manager that, is, his job is to have relationships with all of our vendors. We typically have a trade summit every single year. We let everyone know exactly how business is. They can voice any concerns that they have.
Right.
But yeah, in terms of, workforce, it's not been brought up a lot, but, there's always the conversation though that, is you see and I don't want to be, that person who's knocking going out and getting a 4-year degree. I've got a 4-year degree. I'm extremely proud of it. You just got to be sure you're going to use it,
Yeah.
because I also see a lot of folks who have a lot of debt, and maybe the right decision would have been, out of high school or even during high school to start to learn a trade and, go directly into that field when you get out of high school.
Yep.
Odds are you could be making more money and, you would have virtually no debt at all.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and I mean, a lot of these electricians, I mean, my best friend is an electrician. He owns his own company. Plumbers, many of them do the exact same thing. I mean, there's lots of success in that. You don't have to just go out and get a 4-year degree. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but you don't have to.
Yeah. So that has been an issue that has been working against the home building industry, I think, over many years, not just recent years, but getting kids or young folks to come into our industry and see that as a viable path. And I call it the college industrial machine, where a generation, I think before ours, probably our parents, saw a 4-year degree as the only path forward. Once you got out of high school, you got to go get a 4-year degree. You're going to college, and no matter what, that's the path. And I think that was ingrained in American society as there you go. And that kind of put any other path on a lesser value, which means blue-collar jobs were on a lesser value than a 4-year degree leading to a white-collar job. And I'm seeing that change for exactly what you said, the debt ratio. Like if you're going to go to 4-year college, you're probably going to incur some sort of debt, and then you'll start working 4 years later. Whereas if you get a skill or a trade in high school and you maybe get 1 or 2 more years of training or do an apprenticeship and you start working sooner, then you're accumulating wealth faster without debt. So you're already ahead of the curve from this person that might incur that debt and start later. I think the general population is starting to see that as a reality and not us just saying that. And then college, you see college enrollments going down, and you do see Midland Tech enrollment going up. They're turning people away at Midland Tech. They need to hire more instructors right now for their construction program. And that's over the last 2 years. So we're seeing that happen finally,
Well, the scenario you're talking about, one way I think it does affect us, though, is, and I feel this, is, if someone picks a specific trade that they're going to go into and, they become great at it, that's great because you're going to get good quality. And we're gonna satisfy the customer because our main goal is to deliver a great house. If you can do that, I mean, generally everything else is going to go pretty smoothly. Yep. But if you've got someone that is a painter 1 week and 4 weeks later they're in drywall, and then they're a framer,
right?
I mean, generally, there's a learning curve to everything that you you do. So it's you don't get the same quality, and that probably goes down to the sub crew level. But every company is not as big as the company I work with, so you have to hire who's there.
Exactly. So when I talk to a lot of our members, a lot of them are in the trades, and they're those companies that you guys contract with. And this model is not just for the large builders. I'd say our medium size and custom builders are contractors, and that means they contract with other companies to do this work. Like if I were to hire, let's just say Stan O'Brien to build a house, Stan isn't going to be there putting up the sheetrock and framing out the house and putting on the shingles. He has companies that he contracts with.
He's not?
He might,
Okay.
he may be more so than you are, but he's going to hire companies to go do that. So I talked to all those people that you guys are hiring, and they are seeing some brain drain. We have the baby boomers that are now hitting that retirement age, and they're taking a lot of their knowledge and expertise that they've accumulated over, 20, 30 years of working in the industry. And they're not passing it down, not of any fault of their own. There's just no one there for them to pass it on to. So they're taking that knowledge with them. That's the brain drain. And we're not having the younger folks come in behind them and pick up that knowledge or work in that regard. So we're trying to fix that. And Midlands Tech, I mentioned, is a great resource for that, to get that expertise. Apprenticeship programs, on-the-job training. And I know Mungo Homes does this as well, and many of our builders and a lot of our larger trade companies have apprenticeship programs and on-the-job learning to help bring in these folks that want to learn those trades and start working. So we're trying to encourage that on the association level, working with our members to help them get those programs in their companies. There's Apprenticeship South Carolina, which is a great organization that can help companies build apprenticeship programs so they can get people in the door, train them up, and then hire them or send them off in the world, whichever happens. We talked about SC Do and SC Works earlier. They have programs for working. They have programs for they can come and help. Let's just use Mungo Homes as an example. They can do a job fair just for Mungo Homes. They do that for Nephron Pharmaceuticals. They can do it for Plumbing Solutions. They can do it for any one of our members if you contact them and ask them to do it. So that's another resource, a hiring resource that is out there that we can help our members tune into and hopefully alleviate some of their hiring problems or staffing issues that they may have. One thing we did recently, we gave away some, or our charitable foundation, I should say, gave away some scholarships, as they do annually. And for the first time this year, we did 3 workforce development scholarships. And there were 3 students that went through the Kate Center and Rich Lex 5 for construction training, and they absolutely loved it. They had they planned to go into our field, the building industry, and they're going. All 3 of them are going to Midlands Tech to further their education in construction training, and that's a 2-year program. They get a certificate. They get a lot of different certificates through that program, OSHA ratings and things like that.
Sure.
And then they come out as ready to go, hired, trained construction workers. So we're very excited about that, and we, as an industry, have supported them in their endeavors by giving scholarships, and we plan to continue doing that. So those are just some of the things we're doing in workforce development on the association level to try to alleviate some of this pressure, to bring more people into the marketplace or into our industry that honestly has a great potential of growth. And you mentioned it, your electrician friend, I bet he has a super nice house and probably a boat in the driveway and an RV. I mean, these guys make good money, and it's a great living. So we just need to get that message out to the students and people who are looking for work. Our industry is a great way to go, and we want to help you get into our industry. I think that's a huge place where our association can be of benefit.
Well, I don't think a lot of people know that. That's the thing. In the grand scheme of things, as far as what we accomplish this year, what's been lacking over the years has been, social media presence. Hopefully this can turn that around.
Yep.
I mean, you've got to get the word out and let people know.
Right. Marketing is a huge part of what our efforts are, in addition to those things that I mentioned, and getting out there and working with the schools. We have a school liaison program, but if you don't tell people what you're doing, what good is it? You're out there doing a lot of great stuff, but it's falling on deaf ears. So it is incumbent on us to spread the word. I mean, that's part of what our responsibility is letting people know about the opportunities and the resources available. And this is a big part of that.
I'd agree. And I would also say if attainability does not change, then, you probably will just organically start to see more people go into trades and trying to avoid the 4-year bachelor degree debt.
Right. Yeah, because you could not afford to have that and live the life that you want to live.
Sure.
So, yeah, get out there and start making money.
Ben, it was great listening to you today. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, Andy. Andy, thank you for being with us today. It was a great pleasure to talk with you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. This is an interesting format for you and I to talk, but I had a great time speaking with you.
You as well, as always.
Thanks to everyone for tuning in to the podcast here. We plan on doing a lot more of these. Please like, subscribe, follow us on all of our platforms as we keep doing these. We're interested in seeing what topics you'd like for us to talk about. If you have a suggestion of anyone who you'd like to see on the couch over here next time, please send those in. Send us an email, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time.